I'll just give a quick introduction. So Guru will be talking today about the era of customer intelligence, and like I was mentioning before, why companies are moving from just company and contact information to something called customer intelligence or contextual intelligence, like he always used to love calling it as well. And Guru is currently heading the team at Ampliz. He was heading the product at Zoominfo previously, and now he's heading both product and growth at Ampliz as well. So Guru, I think all over to you.
Hey, thanks, Lakshman. Hey, thanks everybody for taking the time to attend the Ampliz B2B Binge, and there's a lot of beautiful talks here. So I'm just gonna talk a little bit into custom intelligence, how B2B data has evolved. I want to keep it very little in terms of slide content and more in terms of questions. So I'm eager to see what the questions are. Please use the chat and the Q&A section to start posting questions about what issues you're facing with B2B data, or what are the expectations from B2B data? How do you think B2B data should evolve? Anything regarding the lead gen process across the funnel. So here you go. I'm going to just quickly start. So sales and marketing teams, actually, we've had some great talks, Sangram Vajre and everybody else. Everybody comes back to only one thing, which is growth, right? And no more vanity metrics. I want more customers. I want more revenue. How do we get there? That's pretty much what the angle is. So what is growth, right? So if you look at growth, growth has, at the end of the day, it's only a flywheel, funnel, or a loop, whatever you want to call it, right? Lead nurturing, lead generation, and sales. That's the closure. Now, in a flywheel or a loop, right, there are only two things that matter: lead volume and then deal velocity. In other ways, one thing measures how fast you are, and other thing measure how big your funnel loop is. So you either play to one of those things or both. Now, a good B2B data, right? They can help you at 5 different junctures throughout this funnel and flywheel. And now the beauty here is, right now, it has been part and parcel of companies, B2B marketing and sales activities. But slowly you can see a big difference in what the traditional data vendors do and what the new age data partners do. So I'm kind of I'm going to talk first about traditional and then go into the new age vendor. So traditional starts with insights, right? So think about any activity you do, like events, have a clickbait content, a form, event registrations, anything. You want to know more about your lead. You want to have more data points about your lead, right? So that you can act on that. Now, this is an example, the channel could be anything. It could be webinars, videos, website forms, LinkedIn. You get a little bit primary data points like an email or a company URL or even an IP address. How do you take and build more data sets from this particular single data point? So that's where an offering like insights helps you. That's number one of traditional. Number two of traditional is new leads. This is pretty common for most of the people. Like you talk to a data vendor and ask them to give you more leads. Even a LinkedIn, for example, right? They give you more leads in reach. So how do you increase the volume? It's basically making your flywheel or funnel bigger. And you have to address the total addressable market, however you define it, whether it's the entire universe of 50 million or just like what Sangram said, maybe only focused on the 100. Now you want a lot of filters to make sense of your market. So for example, right, you can use the traditional filters like industry, revenue, title, location. These are all traditional data vendors can give you. So you have your own individual customer profile, which they call it ICP. You can build different personas and get the leads and feed them into your funnel or loop, thereby making it bigger. So this is second traditional. Third and fourth of the traditional ways in which data companies help you is in helping you maintain data. Like say, you get a lot of data in your CRM and marketing automation softwares. How do you fill in all the gaps? What happens if some things are missing, some key fields are missing? How do you prioritize your lead? How do you qualify them, right? Because personalization depends on all these fields. So you have append. So that's the biggest problem here. For example, I'm giving a small example here. Like you have 4 rows and a lot of fields are missing. And with a traditional data partner, they can actually help you fill in all the gaps. That's append. So the last of the traditional ways in which a data vendor can help you is enrich. So marketing databases and company data, right, typically tends to get stale every 3 months, 6 months, right? This is a great time to talk about, like, see, COVID has happened. A lot of people have changed jobs. The roles have changed. They've lost jobs. Titles have changed. So everything, the data point is not relevant anymore. Like, it's outdated, it's wrong, it's incorrect. Now, this is not just an element to think about and say, okay, it's bad. No, it adds to a cost and complexity, right? It's no longer a one-time exercise. It's a continuous activity. So this is some stats from Neil Patel in terms of how much of the corporate data gets bad, how much get dirty, what is the cost to maintain it? Like, they're actually saying it's actually $100 per record to maintain, because as it goes down funnel, your cost increases. So a good data vendor can help you in a traditional way of fixing this. So I talked about 4 traditional means, right? New leads, insights, enrich, and append. The most exciting part of what's I'm going to come next is, so this is how the data industry has been operating for the last 2 decades. People gave contact numbers and company data, then they wanted more and more. Then they said, okay, let me try to give you some proxy intent, some behavioral data. This is where the industry is at right now. And I feel all of this is very traditional, because the new age data partners are going to give you more than that, right? So what are they going to give you? Now, it's a well-known problem that, like, customers are exposed to so many campaigns, so many products, so much brands, that the attention spans are very minimal. They want to engage with the brand. They want to engage with the campaign. They want to remember it. So which means you have to make that message very, very prioritized for that particular customer, right? Each one-to-one personalization at scale. Now, for all of this, you need a lot of custom intelligence. Now, at Ampliz, we say, like, okay, you want to just have different kinds of custom intelligence, right? Let's start thinking beyond traditional. What are the different custom fields that we can have? One can be industry specific, which can be focused on healthcare, retail, recruiting, any industry, you name it. So there are little minutiae of data points, niche data points that will help you focus better, make your campaigns more personalized. Growth specific. These are company level, where executive changes, people have hired, people have been laid off, a lot of traction, growth, website traffic, social activity channels, all that comes into growth specific. And the third is more in the persona. Like, for example, a good way to understand that would be how they name their employee titles. Like, what is that? Like, is their marketing sales strategy different? Are they more in the demand gen, more into sales? Or what are the content they're reading? What are the technologies they're using? What tools? That actually leads back into what kind of teams they have, what kind of processes they have. This is very persona specific. Only when you have all this kind of new age custom intelligence can you actually build a personalized campaigns, a personalized messaging that matters, and more importantly, develop empathy and nurture your prospects. Now, this is a small example. Like, for example, you have 4 records, 4 rows, and just one extra data point like CRM used can actually help you prioritize the leads that matter. And so I've covered 4 traditional and 1 new age. So these are the 5 ways a good B2B data partner can help you in your fundamental ask of sales and marketing, which is growth. Now, just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts about how do you choose the right data partner. One, in today's day and age, you shouldn't be limited to geography. So anybody working in any part of the globe. So global scale is important. Very, very high data standards and custom research capabilities. This is an info chart that we use regularly to show what is the coverage Ampliz has across the globe. And also to talk about how we want to think about scale and personalization, right? You want to have scale is one side, which means I want data in hundreds of millions, instant product-based tech automation. And on the other side, you want service personalization. I want data in like 100 leads with these 10 attributes. Delivery, which takes an SLA of a day or 2 days, and expert research. That's the balance that you want to have in a new age data partner today. To wrap it up, it's a data platform, which is the product scale plus personalized contextual intelligence. And I welcome you all to the new era of custom intelligence. And I'm up for questions. Thanks, Lakshman.
Thanks, Guru. I think that was nicely summed up. And as you mentioned, I think Sanjaram kind of set the tone rightly today as well. He was mentioning about it's not why are you chasing up the quantity of leads which you want. If your team is looking at closing 100 conversations, then it doesn't make any sense to go and you kind of narrowed it down much more, stating like if you need to move from that 10,000 or from that shoot and spray and pray model to point and shoot model, how contextual intelligence is going to power you as well. I think I see a coherence in how this conversation is moving. So just before we go to the questions, let me just do a quick polling. And as you mentioned, people, if you need a free growth consultation with Guru with respect to how you're currently working with your data, if you need a quick analysis of how better you can pursue with your data or be more targeted with anything with respect to growth, I think he's up for it. You're up for it, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so the poll is live, and I'm just keeping it aside, and I'll quickly jump onto the questions right now. Okay. There are a lot of questions, and some of them are like pretty TDJ, we get it every time, but I'm just gonna pick and choose some of the good ones. Okay. Okay, so this one, I'll start with this one. So, is it normal for contextual intelligence requirement to vary between sales and a marketing team?
Absolutely. See, I think how I define this custom intelligence is it's very attuned to your process of defining what a good lead is, right? So, I always give you the example of how a cloud DevOps company came to us, and we spoke about specific titles and locations, right? Now that is how the persona and the ICP is defined.
Yeah. Got it. And next question, it again carries a bit of alignment. You mentioned that Neil Patel mentioned to maintain one data record it costs around like $100 as they move further down the funnel. And we have a question pretty much to it. So can data investment turn costly if we try to go hyper personalized?
So yeah, I think that's a good question. I think hyper personalization depends on how sophisticated you are.
Okay.
Okay, so if you are not very focused on like you're starting off personalization. Sorry, I just made something flash on my screen here. So it depends on what kind of personalization you do. So if you're doing minimal personalization, then you don't need to invest so much money in getting so much data points. But if you've already evolved as a marketing team, then you just need to get more data points to become even more hyper personalized. So I would use a yardstick of it depends on where on the scale you are. Like if you're just starting up, just collect 3-4 data points that matter to you at a very large scale. And if you've already churned out that, then you go deeper into let me take the 5 data points to get into that tens and hundreds of customer personalizations.
Got it.
And that actually sums up into what kind of data points you also want.
Okay.
So it's just the maturity of what kind of data points you've seen.
Got it. And I think there is an extended question there as well. How do I arrive at the decision makers in each industry? If someone is beginning to target, there is actually an overlapping question, and probably you can address this in, address both in the same way. For example, this question has a use case. I'm from medical equipment manufacturing industry, and going by your words, should I go for the hospital management or the doctors who influence it? So I think this is a pretty tricky question. So it kind of aligns both one, and I would like to take one shot.
See, that is why I think we have a lot of customers who come and ask us for what data points matter, right?
Yeah.
But I think they are the ones that we listen to for them. Right? We ask them what data points matter to you, because our job is to make sure we collect the data points that matter and give it to you. But we are not in a position to make those decisions because customers know very well. Right? In this case of a medical device company, right? I mean, one company might say, my strategy is to influence the doctors. One might say, my strategy is to influence the pharma or the decision makers, the influencers I'm focused more. One might say, I'm focusing direct on the decision makers itself. So it's a strategy that is very different from each company. And that is why I keep saying it. Intelligence is very custom and personalized. What is gold for one customer might not be worthwhile to the next customer.
I think that's pretty interesting. Even if they are in the same industry, and even if they are targeting the same people, if the campaign and the messaging model is different, then their buyer persona will be different. I think that's an interesting
Absolutely.
Take.
So it comes back to what is your persona, how do you want to do, what campaigns matter, and then you've seen a pattern of this particular intelligence works. So we are here to run experiments and help you get more data points to personalize it better.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Okay. So again, an extended question from the same line. Is there a strategical way to arrive at the data points for my target segment?
Okay. That's a.
I know the easiest way is to get into a consultation call with you, but other than that, anyone who's watching.
No, see, I think a framework would be a very nice thing. I think that could be a next topic that I could talk about. That's a great topic. But the idea is like, let's start like this, right? So think of how a kid grows up, right? When you're a very small baby, like all you need is milk, right? And then when you go into a toddler stage, you want the basic vitamins and everything to be covered, right? And then you start graduating into different food types because you have to get mature. Okay. Same way, if you're starting up, I think like, the fundamental thing is, okay, do I have a database where I have a company intelligence basic level traditional data types, which is a primary identifier, like firmographic contact information. Once I have this, then you say, okay, I'm ready for the next stage. What is the next stage now? The next stage is, okay, choose one kind of, I showed you the 3 levers of custom intelligence, right? You have to choose.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to focus on growth level? Do you want to focus on industry specific, or do you want to choose a persona driven? That is a decision as a person, as a company, as a CMO, as a entire executive team. You have to decide what matters to you. Correct, right? So because once I have this, you can choose like, I want to focus my campaign driven around personas. Focused around industries, focused around growth. So that matters to me. And don't try to boil the ocean by getting everything. I think like that's where the mistake most companies make. So you choose 3, 4 that matter, run a few experiments and see if it matters, drop it, move to the next.
Perfect. Makes sense. To round up, it's just like start small, arrive at like 2, 3 personas and then, do a few experiments and then, you can probably scale it better. Makes sense. Good. Okay. So you were talking about, traditional and new age methods, and, one of the consistent problem which we see, in both these areas is something, which has started as a question, which is some of us try to predict the revenue model based on, other data sets like employees, tech stack, etc. Is it a legit way to arrive at revenue? How trustworthy is it?
No, see, I think like, data companies, like a lot of companies started in the, let me collect my thoughts, intent-based stuff, right? Okay. So they I think like, I can name a few companies, but I don't want to name them. These companies said we can analyze 3 million, 5 million, 50 million signals and tell you who the next 100 customers are going to be. Right. So it's kind of like playing God with the data, right? Like, I'm going to tell you what's going to work, right? That is where I use the term called proxy intent, right? Okay. So that's where in the data sheet, actually, let me share it. I think that might make sense more when you see it. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So the behavioral data and proxy intent, like, this was the focus for a lot of companies. And they said like, I'm going to build a model where we crunch 5, 10 million signals and give you 100 customers, which will close tomorrow. The problem with that is like, there is a lot of ambiguities, there's a lot of process driven, there's a lot of like, different elements you can't measure. It's so random, right? So what happens is like, that is also, as an external vendor and a partner, you will never be in a position to comment on it as a sales or a marketing guy in that company. So we want to be the great consultant helping you there. We want to be the partner helping you to do whatever you want. So you turn around and say, Guru, Lakshman, Ampliz team, just get me these 5 data points. I want to run 2 experiments. We'll get you that. And we'll see what works. If it works, then what we'll do is from 100, we'll scale it up to 10,000, 100,000. We put you on a quarterly growth plan and build that intelligence because you found that golden nugget.
Got it.
Got it, right? So it's kind of an exercise to find that intelligence because it's very custom. And then, let me give you an example. For example, if you're focusing on retail companies, right? Okay. You would start with decision makers and company size and everything. But then what happens, like, if you get information about SKUs, what are the SKUs that they sell? And if some SKUs is mapped to logistics and like, some are high touch, some are low touch. You start diving into different metrics. I know
Exactly.
one of our customers also asks us about payment gateways. So there are different elements that you can build intelligence for the same retail customer.
Yeah,
Right?
I think it kind of circles back to your previous answer as well. Even if you're in the same industry, the same target market, still your personas can differ based on whatever campaign or
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I think your personas and your strategy, along with how the market captures, that intelligence will determine how your campaigns are effective. And our job as a data partner is to just make sure that you get all the intelligence aspects.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. I think this is one question, which we get quite often, but I'm still going to go ahead and take it out. How can you make use of the data that you provide apart from running an email campaign or cold call campaign?
Yeah, so that is one of the biggest mistakes. People think like, data, oh, okay, then I don't want to run emails, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, data and intelligence is very synonymous with outbound, right? And that's totally not true, because I think there is a lot of ways in which you can use an inbound focus as well. Apart from the data management way of cleaning and maintaining your data is accurate, there is an inbound angle. Like, for example, like, visitors come to your website, you can use the IP address itself to understand and even personalize your content, right?
Yeah.
Depending on like, what your persona is and who this persona is, and is it matching your target profile, what are the product offerings you're doing. So you can get deeper and deeper into the integration of not just email campaigns, but even social outreach, paid ads, and as well as inbound as well. And not to forget, the biggest chunk is also in the data management piece, because as your marketing database starts getting bigger and bigger, that's when, it needs to be a continuous exercise, right? You cannot just think about fitness once in a quarter, right? It's like that.
Got it. Okay, so I'm just gonna take this one last question, and with that we'll move on to the next session. You were mentioning consistently about moving from a data vendor to a data partner, and how a data partner. So is it important? And one more thing to add on is you were also not talking just from a data perspective, but also from a campaign and a growth perspective, like achieving your targets, etc. So how important is it in this, you also mentioned about how COVID has, made the industry spun from the data point of view. How important it is to choose a partner wisely, instead of just going for any other vendor out there in the market.
See, I think a good data partner, it's like, I think it's like hygiene, right? Right? Without it, you will suffer. With it, the advantages is like, you will just make sure, it's like, they tell, right? If you're not well dressed for a job, you will definitely not get it, right? Right? It's like that. So it's like a baseline. You need a very good partner to help you make sure that you are operating at that level and you're able to compete. Now, the extra benefits that you get is the personalization and the custom intelligence. So when you're choosing a partner, choose like a couple of aspects. One is, I want somebody with global scale. Today, we are operating in a world completely where the boundaries are removed, right?
Okay.
Your customers can be anywhere with global working and global operations. Like anybody can sell to anybody. So you need a data partner who has data intelligence across the globe, number one, which is scale. They have a good mix of, as I said, scale and personalization. Scale means they have a big product offering. I'm able to without any human intervention, I'm able to get products, get data out, right? And at the same time, if required, I can lean on their research team and process team to build custom intelligence. Right? And the third absolute quality is they have good high data standards. I think those are very simple checklists to keep track of.
Perfect, Guru. Thank you. And I think that's a perfect way to round off as well, starting from where it all started as what is contextual intelligence, and, how important it is, how to choose a partner, who's going to help you achieving it as well, not from just a data perspective, but also from campaign and achieving your business targets as well. Thanks a lot. I think we have taken up, almost all the questions, and, thank you once again. With your closing note, we just move on to 10.